So what state is the most expensive state to buy a home in? Stay tuned for the end of this video and we'll tell you. And there's a lot more information we're going to talk about today on the housing market update. Let's get into the big three. Prices are steady, inventory is up, and rates are sideways this week. Almost no movement. And the headline news, well, headline news was pretty big. Home sales are slowing to a recession level low. And we're not talking about 2020. We're talking about 2008 when we had the Great Recession. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Well, what do homeowners think of it? Oh, they like it. They like it a lot. All right, what about the Fed? What's going to happen with the Fed? The Fed, are they going to cut rates next week? If you would have asked us 2 weeks ago, the answer to that was going to be no. Well, you know what? Some of the Fed members are changing their tone. And then again, at the end of this, we're going to answer what state is the most expensive state to buy a home in. And you know, it's probably no surprise, but which one is the least expensive state to buy a home in? All right, let's first take a look at existing home sales. This is for the month of June. And in the month of June, we saw a 2.7% decrease month over month in existing home sales. It's the lowest level of home sales at 3.93 million since 2008. The median price, though, is at $435,000, the highest level. So what does that mean? Home prices are going up, but why is that? If we have so few homes, the demand is still there, home prices are still going up, but the reason why home prices aren't necessarily going down a lot is because sellers are incentivizing the homes and the appraisal amounts are staying pretty steady. But still, that is a big number, and that raises a concern for affordability for home buyers. But I will tell you this, home buyers right now have the advantage. I have a person, actually a family, they are closing on their first home. A $1.1 million purchase, they got $70,000 of seller credits. They bought down their rate. They actually got about $30,000 in invoices to repair, not necessarily repairs, but upgrades to the home before they even move in. They talk about a great deal. And you know what? This property they bought, they have rental opportunity immediately because they have a downstairs unit attached. So what a great deal. And those are the types of deals that you're going to see in a market where homes are sitting for a while. All right, here's the other thing. Average homeowner's wealth has increased by $140,900 over the past 5 years. That just goes to show you the benefit of home ownership. And it was interesting. I was listening to the Patrick Bet-David podcast, and one of the gentlemen was talking about why you should never buy a home because $1 million home, he was asking Vinny, hey, who has a VA home loan benefit, hey, how much are you going to pay for that home over 30 years? And Vinny didn't know the answer. And the point he was trying to make is you're going to pay more than $2 million for that home. Well, I got news for you, brother. Nobody pays a mortgage for 30 years. One, you're going to sell it. Most people sell their home within 4 to 6 years. And two, you're going to refinance. No one's going to keep that same interest rate for 30 years. So your information is flawed. It's certainly incorrect. If you were to make every payment over 30 years at 6% or whatever it is, yes, you're going to pay more than twice as much over the course of time as that you paid for that home in the first place. But nobody does that. All right. And if you're concerned about paying that much interest, what do? And you put a little more to principal. But guess what? Over 30 years, what is that value of that home going to go up to? It's going to double, maybe even triple, maybe even quadruple over that same time frame. All right, so that was my critique of Patrick Bet-David, who I watch, and I love that show, but that gentleman was wrong. One of the other really interesting pieces of news on this existing home sales report, and this is a big one, only 21% of homes sold over the asking price last month. That's a small number. And there are 4.7 months supply of homes. Last month it was 4.6. In June it was 4.7. So you're seeing a more balanced market that's actually trending more into a buyer's market across the nation. All cash buyers up from 27% to 29%. So people who have money, guess what? They are investing in homes. First-time home buyers pretty steady at 30%. So almost one out of every three purchases is a first-time home buyer. 16 to 17% for investors. But just not a very good report for existing home sales, and should be no surprise because the pending home sales report from the previous month was low. And homes that closed in June, they went into contract in April. Man, that's when interest rates, conventional wise, were over 7%. So, not a surprise with this report, not a good report. Let's get into the new home sales report. Well, we were kind of dead on the water again in June. We were up 0.6% month over month. Signed contracts, but year over year, we're down 6.6%. And folks, 2025 was supposed to be the year of recovery in the housing market. We just haven't seen it. The new home builders are hurting. We talked about that last week. Prices are down 4.9% month over month, which is pretty big, down to 402,000. But part of this has to do with the homes that were sold. 5,000 more homes were sold in the price range between 300,000 and 399,000, while 5,000 fewer homes were sold above the $500,000 mark. So basically, that skews that median sales price for new homes or lower by 4.9%. So it's kind of, while it is lower, not necessarily a sign of it, home prices dropping that much. Just a different mix of homes being sold. 511,000 new homes for sale. That is the largest number of homes for sale in the market since 2007. But you know what? Most of that is air. Only 119,000 of those 511,000 were actually completed. 121 of them haven't even been started yet. And where is a month of supply? A month of supply is at 9.8%. So again, inching up higher. 10 months of supply. Again, new home builders are struggling. That's what this report is telling you. And let's take a look at the U.S. housing market. This is the total amount of inventory, active listings, and it has steadily risen from the lows of 346,000 in 2022. We're now at 1.1 million, so almost triple the amount that we had from our lows right as interest rates started to go up. Now, we are still below where we were at pre-COVID. We're getting up to a more normal scope of active inventory, or range of active inventory, that signals a healthy housing market. Now we just need those interest rates to come down. You look at specific areas, New York, big city of dreams. There's not a lot of inventory there, so not a lot of good dreams for people who want to buy homes. Just not a lot of inventory there. It's certainly less than 50,000, about 38,000 listings active in New York. You know what is that? That's a lot like? It's a lot like Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area, specifically Virginia Beach, though. Not a lot of inventory there, despite interest rates going high, because that is such a great place to live. Now, I will say this, New York and Virginia Beach are totally different on affordability. There are different reasons. There's such a big impact from military in the Virginia Beach area, and great school systems. People want to live there. That's why that inventory is so low. But New York has a very low inventory. It stayed low. But look at Texas, look at Florida. All three are at 9-year highs. Hawaii's actually at a 10-year high for inventory. California, which is the red one, you have seen a surge, but still really overall lower than where it was at pre-COVID as far as inventory goes. So, and this is, California is such a diverse state, the areas, and you don't know what really had the impact of forest fires or the Malibu fires having on the inventory levels. But in any case, California is a little closer to New York, Florida, and Texas, so where a lot of people are moving, there is now a lot of inventory. Hawaii is the same. Now let's talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was signed a couple of weeks ago. It is a good news bill for homeowners. That's right. Here are several of the things that are going to be positive for homeowners. First, there's a permanent extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act for personal income rates. It caps that max tax rate at 37%. State and local tax deduction, the SALT deduction cap, goes from 10,000 max to 40,000 max. That is a huge benefit in a high tax state. This is only temporary though for the next 5 years, but you know what? For the next 5 years, I'm going to take advantage of that, absolutely. And people who are homeowners are going to take advantage of that, especially in a high tax state. Mortgage interest and mortgage insurance premium deductions of $750,000 is now made permanent. And the premium deduction is back in effect. That's great news for homeowners. Permanent expensing of capital investment and increases in pass-through income deductions go up from 20 to 23%. We also now have permanent protection. There's been talk of 1031 exchanges that benefit, basically off-put taxes on home sales for investment properties. That we now have a permanent protection for 1031 exchanges. That is huge news for anybody who has an investment property and they want to sell it and not pay the property taxes or push the property taxes down into another investment property. Huge benefit right there. And then, you know what? The next big move coming up that could benefit homeowners. The No Tax on Home Sales Act works its way through Congress right now. And if this was passed, it would eliminate the capital gains taxes on the sale of a primary residence. Right now, you won't pay capital gains on the first $250,000 of capital gains if you're single, $500,000 capital gains if you're married. What about anything over that? Well, if this bill is passed, you won't be taxed on any of your capital gains that you make through the sale of a home, which is a benefit for a homeowner. You're already paying property taxes. So, why continue paying the tax man for something that you actually put your money in and made those payments on? So really, some good news with the One Beautiful Bill Act for homeowners. There's some more potential good news for homeowners coming down the line. So we'll see, and I'll certainly report to you on the No Tax on the Home Sales Act and how that progresses. But big positive news for homeowners. Next up, will the Fed cut rates? The Fed meets next week. And if you would have asked anybody 2 weeks ago whether or not the Fed was going to cut rates, the answer would have been, heck no. But you know what? Higher interest rates, mortgage rates are taking a toll on new and existing homes. And you now have Fed chair or Fed governors actually saying we should make a cut. We are in a too restrictive of an environment where the Fed funds rate is now. Fed Governor Waller, in a speech to NYU, spoke the title of his speech, "The Case for Cutting Now." And he thinks we should be closer to 3% on the Fed funds rate. Right now, we're between 4.2 and 4.5%. So that's a full 1.25 to 1.5 points lower than where we are now. And Fed Governor Waller, he may be the next or Fed chair. So interesting, but he highlighted a couple things that make it a good argument for us cutting the Fed funds rate. One, tariff impact is short term. All right. The long-term impact, it's a one-time hit when you have tariffs. And we haven't really seen that yet anyway. Inflation is still low. The GDP, gross domestic product, is soft. It's been lower than what the Federal Open Market Committee projections have been. So that is a big deal. Employment is still low. Do we want to wait until unemployment is high before we start cutting the Fed funds rate? No, I don't think we want to keep unemployment low overall. And we can. And also, inflation is already near the target rate. We're not at 22% anymore. We're not even at 3%. We're below 3%. We're at 2.7%, 2.6%. So inflation is much closer and pretty steady and near or the desired 2%. So, and here's a couple other things. Fed Chair Powell is now under investigations for perjury, for basically lying under oath. And Fed Chair Powell is under some serious scrutiny from the president for his $2.5 billion projected spend. It ain't even done yet on upgrading the headquarters at the Federal Open Market Committee building. $2.5 billion. I'm not talking million, baby. I'm talking billion. What the heck are you doing to a building that's going to cost $1 billion? So President Trump visited today, and if you saw any of the highlights, any of the news clips, he was in rare form. But really, the Fed and certainly Fed Chair Powell and President Trump and Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent, really, they're not seeing eye to eye right now. And there is a better chance now that rate cut next week in July than there was a couple of weeks ago. And remember, if they don't cut rates this month, the next opportunity to cut the Fed funds rate will be in September, which is, that's a couple months down the line, and that might be too late. So let's take a look at VA rates. Really no movement. We started the week at 6.41, 6.42. Now we're at 6.40. So steadily between 6.25 and 6.5%. No real expectation this week that rates were going to go in any other direction substantially. Next week, though, is Fed week, and we also have the personal consumption expenditure report that comes out, and that will dictate some pretty serious movement of interest rates. If the Fed cuts rate, you can expect that interest rates will come down. Right now, there's no real belief that the Fed will cut the Fed funds rate, but if they do, rates will drop. And if the inflation numbers come in at or below expectations, expect to see interest rates come down a little bit too. So what does this all mean for you? Well, hey, mortgage apps are up. Again, we are in the summer moving season, but we still don't have no summer sizzle. This summer fizzle. Inventory is still the highest it's been in Oahu in 10 years. And you know what? There are some great loan products. I just closed an asset depletion loan over it was like a $1.6 million purchase. Not for me personally. And then, you know, again, just talking about that $70,000 credit. I have a $40,000 credit that's going to close next week, certainly helping make mortgage payments affordable. So really now is the best time, because when interest rates do come down, some of these credits, if not all of these credits, will go away, and you'll have a lot more competition because the demand is there. Right now, just people are sitting on the sidelines. Sellers, hey, you know what? Summer has not helped. Again, inventory is high. You go down certainly in Evan Beach, Kapolei, and there are for sale signs all over the place. You know, I would not be putting my house on the market if I didn't have to. I would wait. I would wait until the fall, until we see interest rates come down. You see an uptick in homes getting sold, and then buyers coming out of the woodworks. All right, so now the news. The news we've all been waiting for. Surprise, surprise, surprise! The most expensive state to buy a home in the United States. It's no surprise. It's California. That's right, it's California. Number 2, shouldn't be surprised either. It is Hawaii. And number 3 is the state of Washington. But it's pretty low comparatively speaking. $760 for Hawaii, all the way down to $612,000 for Washington State. That's a pretty big jump. That's $150,000 less to buy a home in Washington. And you know, those are the numbers. And it's really no surprise. But what is the least expensive state, or the most affordable? Alabama. Alabama is the most affordable state. You know who's right behind them, though, is Iowa. That's right, the cornfields of Iowa, $230,000. So interesting news. And this was based on residential property sales that closed in the month of December in 2024. So just interesting numbers. But I figured I would share that with you. What do I want to talk about? Oh yeah, okay. So really, very expensive to buy a home in Hawaii. How are buyers going to make home payments affordable? Well, take a look at my next video on why existing home sales are so popular right now and should be your first choice before you go to new home sales. Take a look at that video so you can see why existing home sales should be really something you should be looking at. All right, that's all I have for you this week. Have a great one, and we'll see you on the next video.